Hi, I'm here with Oswald Huỳnh, who is the winner of the NEP's Call for Scores for his work Gia Đình. And we're very excited to perform it this weekend on October 22nd at Jordan Hall. Oswald, we're wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind this work.
Yeah, so the piece Yadin, meaning family, is exploring intergenerational trauma, cultural inheritance, and what is lost between eras. I'm really interested in basically the relationships and the interactions between, specifically in this piece, the Vietnamese diaspora and then the Vietnamese boat people, which that diaspora came from.
And I know that in your program note, you mentioned that you quote some traditional music as well.
Yes. So each movement is uses a different Vietnamese melody. The first movement uses a Vietnamese fisherman's work song, Li Kéo Chai. The second movement uses a Vietnamese Catholic chant, specifically the penitential act or Tin Kinh Nhẫn. And then Tin Tu Nhẫn. And then the final movement actually uses an imagined Vietnamese melody.
It's very beautiful, this piece, and it really impressed both Tian and me when we were reviewing the scores. It's really so colorful and dazzling. And I was wondering if you could share some thoughts of how our audiences should listen to this piece when they approach it this weekend.
Yeah, so for specifically the first two movements, I take those two songs, those two Vietnamese songs, and I take melodic fragments from them, so only portions of them, and then I use that as the musical materials. For the first movement, it will be harder to tell. You'll sometimes it'll be really obvious when I'm using them, and sometimes they're kind of hidden in the background. But then for the second movement, the fragments slowly build up, and you'll get to hear the chant into the entirety. For that final movement, think of that the melody that I use that you'll hear right at the beginning of that movement as kind of like a resetting point or a home point. That is all the chaos that will be in between that final movement.
Yes, there's some moments where you're jump cutting very quickly between lots of disparate materials, and there's such great contrast that I can hear this element of fragmentation, but also how it's really building something very exciting. Well, I know that this work was not your very first orchestral piece, but one of your first that was performed in a with an orchestra. What was the experience like writing this?
Yeah, so this was specifically written for the St. Louis Symphony. When I was at my master's at Mizzou, they do readings each year for a couple of composers, and the process of writing this was kind of a culmination of a lot of my research into Vietnamese music, but also just kind of building up towards all the pieces I'd written before this. And a lot of the ideas that I implemented into this piece were something that were brewing in my head for a long time. So I spent a long time in the pre-composition process. I spent months kind of thinking about the form of the piece and what I wanted to communicate. But then the actual composing of the piece was fairly quick. It was done between like what was it, 2021 now, August to October, and I actually got a reading session with the St. Louis Symphony when they came to Mizzou to do a residency, and they read the piece there. And then I got to workshop it even further and revise it a little more for another reading the following spring. But then they commissioned me to revise it, which they performed the next year. So I got even more, a whole year to really flesh it out, flesh out the ideas, and get really what I wanted.
Well, it's a rare opportunity to get this chance to return to a piece and flesh it
Yeah.
out. Really wonderful to hear how it's in its current state, and it's been now performed by a number of ensembles, including the American Composers Orchestra, which is was exciting opportunity. So I'm wondering, as we look ahead, what are you working on now for the future?
Yeah, so currently I'm revising a piece for the Indiana University's new music ensemble, and then I have a premiere coming up with the Illinois Philharmonic Orchestra, because I'm their composer to residence this year, and then along with that piece, I will be writing two more pieces this season for them, and then I'll also be one of the Louisville Orchestra's composer in residence next year through their Creator Course program.
Congratulations. Well,
Thank you so much, Eric.
we look forward to hearing much more orchestral music from you. in the future.
I'm looking forward to writing it.
Thank you.